Mr. Stefik. I am Assistant City Attorney Rebecca Hammock. This matter is a hearing being held before the License and Health Committee of the Common Council of the City of West Allis. This license hearing is being held pursuant to Section 125.12 of the Wisconsin statutes. In the matter of the complaint against Stefik LLC, Neil A. Stefik, agent for the premises located at 1902 South 68th Street, doing business as the Drunk Uncle, in regards to the your request for renewal of your Class B tavern license. Let it be noted for the record that the following committee members are present. Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Identify yourself and your role.
Yeah, Vince Vitale.
Chairperson?
Chair.
Suzette Grisham, Vice Chair.
Dan Road, Alderman.
Ms. Rinke?
Alderperson?
Yeah,
Your name?
your name. Your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Rosalie Reinke?
Tracy Stefanski, Alderperson.
One assistant city attorney is prosecuting this matter. That is Attorney Serwin over there. I am acting as an advisor to the committee. For the record, we will now have everyone state their appearances. Mr. Stefik,
Me,
your full name?
Neil Anthony Stefik.
Nick Serwin for the prosecution.
As I already stated, I am the city attorney for the committee. Mr. Stefik, the nature of this hearing is for the committee to make a decision as it relates to the complaint against you, which has been filed with this committee. Under the provisions of Section 125.12 of the Wisconsin statutes and Section 9.02 sub 20 of the West Allis Revised Municipal Code, this hearing has been convened for the purposes of determining whether any of the charges against you are true, and then to make a recommendation based upon that determination. This committee will examine all the evidence concerning the charges through inquiry to both sides. The committee will evaluate and then impartially weigh the evidence. It will determine whether or not any of the charges have been proven solely upon the evidence introduced at this hearing. This hearing is open and to the public. A verbatim record of the proceedings is being made by audio recording. You can be represented by your own attorney. Assistant City Attorney Nicholas Serwin is here as the prosecutor, and he will present the case against you to the committee. I am here and present to serve as a legal advisor to the council if they have any questions, or the committee if they have any questions of law and procedure. I can also ask questions on behalf of the committee to help them determine what happened. You may present your own evidence, call and examine your own witnesses, and cross-examine any witnesses against you, and all witnesses will be sworn. Both the complainant, that would be Attorney Serwin, and the licensee shall be limited to 1 hour each for presentation of testimony, not including cross-examination or questions from the committee or the city attorney, assistant city attorney representing the committee. The chair may extend the time for presentation of testimony to assure a full and fair hearing. Subject to a motion for consideration by the full committee made by a member of the committee, the chair has the final ability to rule upon all questions, objections, and motions as to procedural matters, admissibility of evidence, and similar issues. All objections, questions, and motions should be directed to the chair. Mr. Stefik, you may testify on your own behalf with regard to the charges against you. However, what you will say will be considered as evidence. Further, if you do testify, you may be cross-examined, and the committee members, Attorney Serwin and myself, can all ask you questions. If a charge or charges against you are proven, you're advised that the committee may recommend to the Common Council that your license be suspended, revoked, or not renewed. And then the Common Council may accept or reject that recommendation and may determine upon that recommendation whether your license should be suspended, revoked, or not renewed. Now, it looks like you were served on August 4th with the complaint and the summons for this hearing. They have been filed with the committee for determination. I now request the clerk to append as exhibits to the record a copy of the summons and complaint together with a copy of the affidavit of service. So the next question is, having received that on August 4th and had time since then to read through that, factually, the facts that are in there in terms of what happened and has brought us to this point, do you disagree or contest any of those allegations?
Which one?
The facts, meaning you were convicted of an OWI, meaning that you did apply for renewal of your license.
Mm-hmm.
So the nuts and bolts of what has brought us here.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't extend to, Attorney Serwin has said that the committee, any recommendations he might make going forward, but that's just the facts laying out why we're here.
Correct.
Okay. At this time, the prosecuting attorney, Attorney Serwin, will present evidence as to the charges before the committee.
Do we need to swear anybody in? So I'm gonna call Mr. Stefik then.
Okay.
Right or left hand, it doesn't matter.
Right hand, raise your right hand.
Oh, that's his hand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Can you state and spell your name for the record?
Neil, N-E-A-L, last name Stefik, S-T-E-F-F-E-K.
Thank you. And just for clarity's sake, so we just talked about that, the complaint, and if I'm understanding correctly, you're not denying kind of the substance of it. I can go through each item and ask you about each one of them, or is there anything on the complaint that you disagree with?
I don't think there's anything I disagree with.
Okay. So I guess just to lay out the prosecution's position here then. So you had that OWI from 2019, right? October of 2019 was the conviction?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Okay. And then we've had a chance, I've talked to you a little bit about,
Yep.
okay. And how that went then was that once a new conviction takes place, you've already had a, let's start that over. You've had a license in West Dallas for the Drunk Uncle for how long have you had it?
Just over 6 years.
6 years, okay. So anything, and these are 2-year licenses, so anything that was,
1 year.
or 1-year license, I'm sorry. So anything prior to that OWI on this complaint would have been on a previous record, you already would have applied and that would have been on there, correct?
Correct.
All right. Why I'm asking you about these now is that once the OWI takes place, there's some law in place discussing or talking about habitual criminality or habitual law offenders, and then kind of the relationship or how that is treated with an agent. You are the agent of the Drunk Uncle?
Correct.
And you're the owner, basically? Okay. Since your OWI offense, did you have to do anything or take any classes or any AODA assessments, anything like that?
I'll have to pay the fines and whatnot. A lot of other things are kind of held off because of COVID.
Sure.
So we're kind of just waiting. When it happens, it happens.
Okay. And is there a certain amount of time that you have to get that stuff done in?
No.
Not right now, okay.
Not as far as I know.
Okay.
Yeah, huh?
Can't advise you on that, and even if I did. All right, so since that OWI in October, there's some kind of imposed things that has to happen to get your license back, but you haven't quite done those yet.
Correct.
All right, understood.
I can't at this point
You can't at this point, okay.
because of COVID.
All right, gotcha. Prior to that, there was a few tickets going back and forth, and they get to be a bit dated. I only stopped about 5 years ago, but you had some license issues. What was that related to?
I've never had a problem with my liquor license.
Not liquor license, I'm
Oh,
sorry. I
I'm
should have been
sorry.
clearer on that one, and that's a
Okay.
good point that you make, but driver's license. So if we look at since 2000, with the October 2019 offense, that was the OWI, in January 22nd, January 22nd of 2018, there was a improper display of registration plate. That was just a traffic ticket.
Yep,
Okay.
just traffic tickets.
January 22nd also had a operating while revoked. Is that correct?
What was the year?
January 22nd of 2018.
That's incorrect.
Okay. If CCAP says it was that, would that be?
That'd be
Accurate.
wrong. Suspended, not revoked. Two different things.
Okay, so you were suspended in 2018 but not revoked.
Correct. I've suspended, never revoked until
Until
last
recent.
year.
Okay. With the OWI, which requires revocation, that's part of the process.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so I make sure I have the right information then. So I'm gonna show you a CCAP printout, 2018, I'm sorry. There's a number on top of there, 18 TR 68,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 679, correct?
I'm seeing it,
All right, and that there says operating while revoked.
yeah. I'm sure it was entered correctly, but
Okay, but your recollection was as a suspension at that
Correct.
time?
Correct.
How did you get your license back at that point?
I did,
You didn't, okay.
Correct.
So you haven't had a license at that point?
correct.
Didn't have a license, all right. Related to the rest of this document then, if anything says revoked, you're saying you were suspended actually?
Correct.
All right. Then I'm gonna be clear for the record then, because most of the time in the complaint, I believe it says revoked. So I'm gonna have you look at these and just tell me whether or not you believe they're accurate or inaccurate, okay? And then I'm gonna publish those to the committee.
All right.
I had a pen. Anne Marie, are the other summons complaints, are those marked as exhibit numbers, starting at 1 and 2 then?
Yes.
All right, so I should start at 3? Exhibit 3 is the one we just talked about, 18 TR 679, that's the one you said should have been a suspension?
Yeah, well, I mean, they all are. I can't control what the officer puts in the paperwork.
Sure.
What he does.
Okay.
I pay the citation, I move on.
All right. 4 then, 17 TR 7938. Is that, it says
Yeah, they're
operating
all-
for revocation, but it was a suspension, you're saying?
Yeah, they're all gonna be the same.
Okay. 15 TR 7486 actually does say operating while suspended, though. That one would be accurate?
If it says suspended, then that's correct.
Okay. And then this one is dated, so I'm not sure if you'll remember at this point, but it's a 15 TR 7485. This one says operate after revocation / suspension of registration. So that one could have been either one, you're saying suspended?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, I can't control what the officer puts down. I just pay the citation, I move on, and
City would move just based on the statements, exhibits 3 through 6 into evidence. Rebecca, do you need those at all? Or Attorney Hammock? Or do you care? Sure, thank you, I appreciate it. The relevance of this would be somewhat limited, and I'm not going to argue this point, but I see some of the stuff comes out of Milwaukee, some of it comes out of Waukesha. You obviously own a bar and work a bar in West Dallas.
Correct.
How are you getting around these days?
I live 2 blocks away now.
Okay.
Just walk.
Excellent. And are you a primary bartender there, making decisions every night? Are you more of a manager? Okay.
Yep.
Do you have any employees?
Yep.
How many employees?
Give or take about 5.
5? Okay. What kind of stuff do the employees do? Are they all bartenders or?
Yes.
Okay, all bartenders. Have you worked in a bar or bar setting prior to you own the property, or you own the place for 6 years, so prior to that?
Yes.
What else or what other experience do you have?
Well, let's see, I started in 2004 on Rural 3rd Street. And I also did 2-3 years on Water Street, jumping back and forth. So about 16 years experience.
Okay.
The
And-
smallest place I worked at had a capacity of 400 people. Largest was about 1,200.
Okay. And do you own any other bars other than Drunk Uncle?
Nope.
All right, that's the one you run. I don't believe I have any further questions at this point for Mr. Stefik.
Yeah, I have a question. Mrs. Stafford, I would like to ask you, I mean, many respect, and I do have that for you.
Appreciate it.
In your period of those offenses, about driving, I mean, did you ever thought about something that's really normal for anybody to get caught?
Unfortunately, with someone in my situation, not really a lot you can do about it. When you go home 5, 6 days a week at bar closing time,
Yeah,
and you live in the middle of absolutely nowhere, you're gonna get pulled over. One time I got pulled over for doing 44 and a 40. It's just gonna happen. They know your car, you know you're going home at part-time, they know you're a bar owner.
so,
When you get pulled over doing 44 and a 40, you know that's just part of the game.
so you felt that the police officer, they did it because they knew you, or?
Oh, absolutely. My first year in business in West Dallas, you guys called me in because I was pulled over 17 times in 12 months. But I stayed in New Berlin, 17 times.
I never heard anything like that, anybody gets pulled over for
It's
no
on record.
reason at
It's
all.
on record 5
So it had
years
to be
ago, yeah.
some kind of a pattern of records, that once they look the license plate, they find some discrepancy, maybe that's part of the reasons. 17 times, like I said, I mean, to me, I mean, I have no
One time I
idea.
got a ticket for not having my actual insurance card on me. That was $10. Like I said, one time I got a ticket for doing 44 and a 40.
Yeah, see, I mean, I can answer, of course, that, but that's why I ask, the reason, to get stopped so many times, that normally it's not unusual
It's not unusual.
situations, so that's why I'm kind of say that it could be the officer, they do check in a second, they can check the license plate and they find other discrepancy on records, that's, I feel maybe it could be the part of the reason. So any members
I
has any
do, Mr.
questions?
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I have several questions for you, Mr. Stefik.
Sure.
One, kind of just to go off of what Alderman Vitale just said. Do you feel that you were targeted 17 times being pulled over?
Everybody is out there.
Okay, all right. With that being said, now you said, it's part of the game. It's a little bit of a flippant response.
It's just part of, goes with the territory.
Could be, but with that being said, being pulled over, knowing that's part of the game or how you look at it, and being a responsible bar owner, do you refrain from drinking, knowing that?
Yes,
Okay,
which is why in that first year, 17 times, never got DUI.
right, but you did get
I did.
an OWI, so
was-
you
no,
can't say in truth that
it was
you
not-
completely refrained from drinking if indeed
It
you
was not
received
coming from
one.
work.
Okay, so that wasn't coming from work.
Correct.
Okay. Part two to my question would be, you said that you cannot do your requirements. First off, I'd like to know what was ordered as part of the stipulation with your OWI, if that's acceptable to ask. Like, are there classes?
I
Are
defer to
there?
Rebecca on that one. I don't have a problem with it, but
Okay.
There's really not a whole lot of restrictions about what you can ask.
Okay, so you said you cannot do it because of COVID, and I understand there's a lot of restrictions with COVID currently. However, what was ordered specifically that you needed to do
One of the
to,
main things you have to do is go to class.
what
okay.
classes would they be?
I forget what you call that.
impact assessment
That sounds about
and the
right.
corresponding classes.
So Impact right now is currently closed, they're not doing any online?
Last I was told, yes, if they do an online one, I'd like to know it, I'll sign up right now.
Okay, because while you were speaking before and Attorney Serwin was speaking, I did look up DUI classes that are available online, and it seems for fee, which I'm pretty certain with any OWI, you have to pay a fee to attend these classes regardless. So whether it's through Impact or it would be an approved DUI online class, I'm sure that you could have gotten a jump start on that. Is that correct?
If you know one, send me the link and I'll check it out.
It's not my responsibility to send you the link.
Oh,
It's your
no.
responsibility as an offender to take a look and do the work in order to show us that you are working towards rehabilitation and making amends for what you had done in order for us to provide a yes for that license. So
Okay.
these are the questions that I'm asking, what work you've put into it. It's not my job to put in the work.
Okay. Well, I've
So-
done everything except for that part. I am not familiar with any other part that's not been done.
Okay, so basically you have to do these classes, whether in person or online.
Correct.
And is that something you're going to look into doing and let us know where you're at with that? Because part of this is to show that you've shown some rehabilitation for, the infraction. And we as a body, as a committee, have to agree that we felt that you're putting in the work. And at this point, based on those answers, I don't feel maybe you have. And COVID isn't a valid excuse, in my opinion. We've made a lot of different adjustments through this COVID, as you can see, even with the work we do here. And I hardly could believe, and I don't know factually, that those that are experiencing problems with alcohol and/or need some sort of rehabilitation services, or to follow whatever the courts had ordered, are not able to do
I
that.
do know that LaSalle schools are currently not in session because of COVID, so makes sense to me.
But they have virtual learning.
And there's none tomorrow either.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm asking
I'm
you
not
what
arguing, I'm
you
just
have
stating
done.
the facts.
And the facts would be, just like I said, I simply looked up a search while I'm sitting here, and it looks like there's DUI classes online.
Ask for that link.
Okay. Well, I can provide you with a link, or you can use your phone and look up your own link. But that's part of my questions that I had, and I have a follow-up on, you said it was an operating after suspension. So can you clarify the difference between operating past suspension or revocation? It's driving when you're not supposed to, correct?
They both would be, and I know this committee, the reason I brought up any of those is the committee, this iteration and previous iterations has determined that that would be something that may substantially relate to the license activity. The distinction being revocations take place on certain offenses, revocations being for OWIs, revocations being for over points. A suspension would be if you are over points but not revoked, generally speaking. I can't say a hard line, hard fast rule, but there are some, if you know, I'm willing to,
Revocation is a crime. Suspension is a traffic ticket.
No.
not all the time. It's not, yeah. An OAR, operating after revocation, is only a crime if it happens when you're suspended for a serious offense, which would be an OWI.
But you can
And so you have,
still be issued a citation for an OAR.
You can
It's
still
up
get-
to the discretion.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a discretion of the officer who issues the citation
And the
and the courts.
charging
Okay.
authorities.
Okay.
So, for instance, you can get pulled over for an operating after revocation in Milwaukee County, and they're probably not gonna do anything about it unless you have a whole slew of them.
generally, if there's an OWI.
It's gonna just be a
you're getting charged.
citation.
Okay,
If you have an OWI and you're revoked during the pendency of that OWI, so if it's a year revocation and you drive during that year revocation, you're gonna catch a criminal OAR in Milwaukee County, generally speaking. If it's outside of that time, it would probably be issued as an operating after revocation criminal charge, but if you reinstate at that point, you would get it amended down to something different.
okay. So for clarification purposes, the OWI was issued, was this operating after suspension after or prior to?
Pre-form.
Nothing,
It was prior?
I'm not bringing up
prior
anything after, we're only talking about OWI and previous to
to?
that
Okay,
point.
all right, okay,
I do have some questions that might help clarify.
okay, thank you.
It's true that you had a previous OWI in 2001?
That sounds about right. About 20 years ago. Yeah.
And your license, you did not have a license, we all know from your history of operating without a license, whether it was a revocation or suspension. Was that related to that prior OWI?
No,
Why did you not have a license in 2015, 2017?
I did.
You don't have a license. If it's suspended, you don't have a
I-
license.
When I first got my liquor license in the city of West Dallas, that was 2000,
Your driver's
14.
license.
is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. So when I first appeared for West Dallas to get my liquor license in 2014, there was a mishap with my identity. They didn't know who I was. They are looking up criminal complaints that I was arrested for breaking and entering and all that stuff, and when I was 9 years old. It wasn't me. So, to prove who I was, they made me get a new driver's license, because it also said I had no driver's license. Came back a month later and showed I had a valid driver's license.
Right, but
I even have it in my pocket, I can show it to you.
the charges in the 2015 and 2017, whether the citation was for revocation or suspension, both of those words
Oh,
mean that you
after
had no
that.
driver's license.
Oh, after that, I'm sorry, I thought you meant
Yeah.
from 2001.
No.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
So why did you not have a driver's license in 2015 till, obviously, till 2019 when you got the OWI?
I can't recall.
And when was the last time you called Impact to see if you could schedule the intake?
It's been a while, maybe 3 months ago,
So,
maybe 2.
and you said you've done everything else to be ready to go.
Yep.
So you have your SR22 insurance?
Yep, all ready to go.
And what was your blood alcohol when you got pulled over in October?
I believe it was .15, 16 maybe.
So you have an intoximeter in your car then?
I don't have a car. I walk to work. I live 2 blocks away.
So you're saying that you have no cars registered in your name at all?
That's correct.
Okay.
I live on 66 in National, I work on 68th and Burnham.
Just for the record, because there's that prior OWI, even though it's 20 years ago, IID would be required no matter what, even if it's a .15 or not. If it's .08, it'd be required.
Yeah, I would like to ask Mr. Neal to, can you start your classes and then show us proofs that you will provide the assistant city attorneys that you start the classes, and
Sure.
a month from now, a month and a half from now, we can
If I can find any classes that are going on,
back on this,
Absolutely.
and we can determine then. But as long as you follow with the classes, then we can determine whether you get your license or not. I mean, to me, that's the directions I feel the committee would like to go, right?
I can do that within 2 weeks if needed.
Yeah.
And
So,
can you tell me when the provisional expires? I didn't print it up this time.
I
but
believe
can
that's
find
the
it.
end of the month, September 30th, 31st.
Okay.
From the 4th usually? Is that usually what you do?
I'm gonna check my email real quick. I'll let you know. I don't, it's thinking about it.
so we can try to follow our directions, right?
Procedurally, and I'll defer to Attorney Hammack on this one, but from my perspective, I think there is wiggle room, whatever the committee thinks is most appropriate. If, logically, what I would say would happen is that we'd adjourn this proceeding, not conclude this proceeding, and basically suspend it or adjourn it out for Mr. Stefik to continue to provide evidence of his rehabilitation. You've kind of expressed what you'd be looking for, and if he can or does or will, it's up to Mr. Stefik how he wants to proceed with that. But it would still be basically in his, he would be presenting information at that point in time. And so it would still, this hearing would still be ongoing at that point, is my thought.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just so I have a clarification as to the direction we possibly would be going, and so the license renewal expires when? For-
Technically, it's already expired, but he
Okay.
was issued a provisional so that we could have this hearing.
Okay, and when does the provisional
That's
extend to?
what we're trying to find out. It's probably the end of September or early October.
End of September, early of October, so we have a matter of
Somebody
a
said
couple
last
weeks,
week.
as Mr. Stefik said himself, you could, knock that out in 2 weeks.
Yep. I believe there's another one of these meetings in 2 weeks. I'll come back and,
Okay,
Well, these are separate from the council
yeah, these
meetings,
are,
so.
yeah, this isn't a regular meeting, we all took our time to be here to hear this. So, with that being said, any further discussion, would that be an open, or could we ask for a closed session as of now to further discuss this among committee members? Is that
We can go in
acceptable?
closed session if we wish.
On this agenda, there is a closed session ability. We would
Yes.
add it for next time as well if you wanted to. I would say, I guess I'll defer to your attorney on this one. I don't have any major objections to it, although procedurally it would seem to come a little bit in the middle of when it would. You can only go into closed session for certain things, and so it would be up to Rebecca whether or not you can meet those requirements.
If the,
That's why I was asking.
yeah, if the purpose of the closed session is to determine exactly what we expect to see from Mr. Stefanik when he comes, or Stefik, sorry. I don't know why I want to keep doing it. Mr. Stefik, when he comes back, I think that's fine. And we would also add a closed session to the next one so you can make your decision about what you want to do in light of his response to our requests tonight. I think that's reasonable.
Do I need to make a motion for that, or do we just?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes,
question.
Owen Stefanowski.
Mr. Steffi, when was the last time you had a valid driver's license?
That's a good question.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I think we can ask for the closed session, discuss what we want to do, and then we could call them back in here, and if the decision that's reached is to adjourn this and give him an opportunity to bring additional proof, then we'll tell them that
Okay.
and go from there.
Well, before I make that motion, I didn't know if any other committee members
Do you
have
any other
have
question?
any
Owen
questions.
Stefanowski, Rosalie, Owen Road. Any
Does every
question?
county have the same terms for rehabilitation? I noticed this happened in Waukesha County, correct?
So it's
OWI.
a state statute that allows the municipality to determine whether he's been rehabilitated or not.
Okay.
There are no guidelines for rehabilitation. Obviously, I think what Alderperson Grisham was getting at when asking what was court ordered is to determine, kind of use that to determine whether he's been rehabilitated, and that also, because it's an OWI, is guided by state statutes.
And how many, I'm not familiar with how many classes they must,
So
Attend?
the state statute requires that you get an alcohol and other drug assessment,
okay,
and then you attend the assessment, and then they make a recommendation for classes based on your assessment.
I
So
see.
the DMV, it's actually two parts. You prove to them that you attended the assessment, and then you attend the classes, and you prove to them that you completed the classes. And then your license is cleared of the OWI.
I see.
It remains on your record.
I mean,
But
it's clear
you're
that,
able
in
to
that you're
reinstate.
fully reinstated and free to drive.
Is
like
anything
normal.
else required of them other than the classes?
That I asked about the SR22 insurance, that's required, and they do require some sort of, they will inquire, they'll run his name and see if any vehicles are registered to him through their system, and they'll require that IIDs be issued on all of those, or they be exempted by the court.
I have a question, if
Go
I
ahead.
may ask. Would sobriety be part of that?
It's
It-
generally not for a
okay.
civil case, because there's no way to really monitor that or enforce it. So not on the forfeitures, no.
Okay.
You can only do that if there was a probationary sentence, and that's not possible with a non-criminal action.
Do you
The
cur-
IID is ignition interlock device. It's the thing you got to blow into in your car. If anybody doesn't know that acronym,
Sorry.
it's okay.
Do you currently have a driver's license? Did I understand that correctly? No, I thought so. Okay, do you live in West Dallas?
I sure do.
Okay.
2 blocks away from where I work. That's why I just walk to work.
Mm-hmm. How do you get to your bar?
I walk, it's 2 blocks.
You walk 2 blocks, I see. Okay. How long have you had the bar?
Just over 6 years, about 6.5 years now.
6 years?
6.5, yep.
I see. When you had this accident,
I never got an accident.
you didn't have an accident?
I just
You were
got
just
stopped.
pulled over at the
Yeah.
time, I see. Okay. But you haven't had any rehabilitation as of yet. It doesn't sound like.
No, no.
The question's confusing.
Okay.
She's trying to,
Can
you haven't,
can you be a bit more specific?
you're asking if he's attended any formal rehabilitation.
Right,
And that's our question, yes.
right.
And the
And he
answer,
said no because of
He said no.
COVID-19.
Oh, and that's what the committee probably is recommending, I would say,
Yes,
right?
that's what
Do I
I,
Or a
understand that?
virtual one?
I do have a little hearing problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
or a virtual one's okay?
Well,
there's a virtual
that,
one
that
going on?
is where I would like to go to closed session to further discuss this, if we may. So
Yes.
I'd make a motion to.
I'm sorry, before we do that, and I'm not trying to interrupt you, and and I'll defer to Attorney Hammack on this one. Effectively, I'm still in my case in chief, we're asking questions of Mr. Stefik, but I want to make sure that if he had a chance to present any information or defense that he wants, if you're going to go into closed session and deliberate whether or not you're going to do something now or adjourn the remainder of the hearing, I want to make sure he has an opportunity to
I
present
have a
whatever.
question. If there are virtual classes, and I sign up for a virtual class, and I come back in 2 weeks and say, here are the virtual classes I'm taking and doing,
I will.
is that okay?
I will say, I guess, just for
that's-
everybody's
if that's allowed
educational
by-
purposes, virtual is not acceptable to the DMV. There's nothing,
It's
as
not?
far as I know, there's no online classes that are acceptable unless Impact themselves is running some sort of virtual program
If Impact is
to
running,
accommodate
So Impact would
COVID.
have to do the intake, to do the recommendations,
There's
which
certain-
basically
yeah.
would be the,
It has to be an approved agency administering the classes, one of those being, the primary one being Impact. But
Okay.
most of the general ones that you just Google don't meet the DMV requirements.
okay.
I'd wonder if, and just surmising, if things have changed at all with COVID.
That's where I'm like, the companies that traditionally offer the in-person stuff may have adapted, but as far as I know, none of the DMV standards have
I would say
changed.
if one of you has a link or a class that is approved, feel free to send it to me.
So the
I'll send it to
DMV is the arbiter of what counts and what doesn't count, not us.
Okay,
So,
well,
I mean,
you
in terms
understand
of.
what I'm- You don't understand what I'm asking.
Yeah, the committee's concern is largely, have you done what you need to get your license back?
Up until
And
this
then
point, yes.
what is needed to get your license back in terms of which specific class is something you really should
For-
talk to the DMV
For what I
about.
can do, yes, as far as I'm aware.
Well,
Yeah,
again, maybe talk to the DMV and make sure that's accurate.
so you're aware that virtually, that is based on, assistant city attorney, you cannot do that. So you have to be something personally, you have to be present.
right, but
So-
there's
so-
nothing present going on, I'm stuck.
Well, and
Well-
if I may, I don't know, and you don't know, based on what you've brought to us. You haven't called Impact, and what you stated was at least 2 months.
Correct.
Restrictions for COVID right now, as far as our city phases, and me as a business owner, and you as a business owner, you do know that restrictions were lifted in that, we went from phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, so there has been some progress. My concern is that you've just sat on this and not done anything, and now you're here before us and asking me
there
to
are
give you the information, and that's not my job.
There are different restrictions. Originally, there was the Badger bounce back. With that going on, technically, you and I, our businesses would not be open right now. That was lifted. There are other restrictions that are put in place. Schools right now are not open.
Right.
Kids are not going to school right now.
We're not
Those are
going,
virtual.
we're not going there with that.
But
What I'm
these are
saying is you
restrictions.
haven't made
School-
the effort to call Impact and bring that to us and say, hey, okay, committee, this is what I have personally done to put the work into it.
But you understand that schools are not being met in session in person right now.
The school
And that's
has
what we're-
nothing to
that's
do
what
with
we're talking about,
Impact.
Right?
No, we're talking about Impact, which is a business that operates AODA education, alcohol and other drug treatment
Right.
programs.
And they are
So-
not going right now virtually.
I don't know that no more than you know that, but like I said, it wasn't my job to find out if Impact has classes or not, because I'm not court ordered to do them. You are. So why are you not at least providing us with the information we need? Our hands are tied, because our job here is to determine whether you have met the requirements of rehabilitation based on our direction from the city attorneys.
Right. And as I said, I've as far as I know, I've done everything I needed to do up until this point.
But unless it's A, B, C, and all of them are checked off, that doesn't meet the criteria.
I'm at a roadblock though.
Okay, so you have to look at that roadblock and see how you're gonna bypass that, get through it, work with it. That's on you
And
to
that's what I'm
bring
saying,
to us.
I'm open to suggestions.
Well, I would suggest personally that you call Impact and find out what you need to do.
Good?
So, Attorney Serwin, do you have anything following in your case in chief?
I have nothing, I have no further questions, and I think we've it's kind of transitioned
Right, and
just general
reserve,
questions.
yeah, reserving your right to rebuttal.
Yes.
We'll move to you, Mr. Stefik. We'll give you a minute to address anything that you think hasn't been addressed, kind of make a pitch, and then I think we'll go into closed session is probably the smart thing to do to make sure you have some say, and we can discuss your position in closed session. I think you can tell from current conversations the direction that things are going, and that what's likely to be considered in closed session is possibly adjourning this to give you time to show more proof of rehabilitation, but now is your opportunity to address whether you,
I guess I have one
your
question.
position on that.
I guess I have one question. If I come back and, if this goes, we come back in 2 weeks for this, or next week, whatever. If Impact says, we're not gonna do this for another 3 more months, now what?
You'll be able to fulfill the classes in a week?
If Impact says you will not have classes for 3 months, hypothetically, then what?
Well, if you have classes, then, I mean, there's no, any place where can you show us that you cannot really go? Well, then we can
Then they can consider that information.
consider that, you know, we're not going to crucify you.
And that's
I mean,
what
I
I'm-
don't think
and that's
we
what I'm
are for
asking.
that, you know? I don't
Mr.
think
Chair.
we'll do that, you know?
Mr. Chair, if I could, and to someone answer that question, as the prosecutor, mind you, so what the committee is tied to right now is a review under Wisconsin Statute 111.335. That probably and should mean nothing to you, but it might be something you want to look at going forward because it talks about exactly what they have to look at. Fulfilling a sentence, in my argument, would be fulfilling a sentence is not the only way to accommodate or accomplish rehabilitation. There's other things you can do. In sub 4, 4D2, it talks about, in addition to documentary evidence that could be provided, meaning that you've successfully completed probation or something, there's a whole mess of other stuff they can consider, including letters of reference, relevant evidence of rehabilitation and present fitness presented, length of time that has elapsed, that's going to be potentially a knock against you, evidence and circumstances. There's things you can do in the meantime, whether or not it is accomplishing whatever the sentence was, to show how you are a business owner, to show that you're taking the OWI seriously. I mean, not driving is a good one, but if
So moving from one location to another, be closer to work, to walk to work?
that's a good point to bring up that you might want to talk about in a second here.
All right.
Stuff like that is what is going to be pertinent to the review. If you decided to, on your own, seek out some type of AA or take precautions, that's the stuff that the committee is going to have to look at, and that's the stuff that,
On December 1st, I moved from New Berlin to West Dallas to be 2 blocks away. So I moved. So that makes it easier for me just to walk. Don't have to drive anymore. Nice and easy.
So at this point, any additional questions?
Well, is there any other information you want them to know? That this is your chance to tell them,
Well, if that other things showing rehabilitation or improvement, I think moving from out in New Berlin to 2 blocks away is a pretty big step.
Well, again,
so.
we appreciate it, Mr. Stafford, but still, I mean, in somewhat, doesn't, no relations at all where we're here tonight, you know? I mean, you could live in Greenfield, could live anywhere, really. That's your choices, you know? We cannot tell you how you get to work, you know?
But I'm telling you, that's how I do it now.
Yeah, but you did, and I do appreciate it because you feel like you cannot drive, you have no driver license, so you walk in and for
Yep.
to your establishment.
Yep.
So at this point, I would like to go, if the committee wishes to go on closed sessions, we could do that. I mean, and determine some of the questions that we are concerned, you know?
I'm fine, but Mr. Stefik, did you complete what you'd like to say?
I think so. Yeah.
So maybe I could read, because at this point, we can adjourn for deliberation.
Is it a motion or?
I make a motion to go into closed session.
Second,
Second,
all in favors?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Would you like me to stick around?
Closed session?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, stick
we're gonna-
around for 5 minutes.
You guys go hang
But
out
you
in the
need to
hallway
We're
for
gonna
a
step
go,
minute.
they're gonna talk and then they'll call us back in.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Stefan.
Sure.